We're staying local this year, my mom said. No trips. But then I saw a family photo on a yacht. My card was in the background, sitting at the bar. Charges were still rolling in. $3,200 spa, $2,800 charter tip. I didn't yell. I just reversed every payment, shut down the card, and froze the travel wallet. At the dock, they were escorted off. My cousin texted, "Did you really just do that?" I replied with interest. What pissed me off the most wasn't even the money. It was the lie, the layers of it, the smug way they all nodded along when my mom said we were keeping it local this year. The fake concern in her voice when she told me, "We'll just hang around the house, do some little things nearby. Everyone agrees. We want to save." Like it was some kind of group decision made out of modesty or wisdom. I didn't argue. Honestly, I was relieved. It was the first time they hadn't tried to nudge me into another week-long production funded entirely by yours truly. Last year, it was Maui. The year before, Aspen. Somehow, I always ended up footing the bill. Flights, lodging, rental cars, meals, everything. Because I was the one who could. They said things like, "You're doing so well," or "It's nothing for you," which translated to, "We feel entitled to your bank account." And for years, I let it slide. I chalked it up to family. That was my mistake. This time, I thought we'd finally turned a corner. I thought maybe they understood boundaries now. So I planned a solo trip to Telluride. I booked a quiet lodge, packed a few books, left my work phone on silent. I was ready for peace. Then came Thursday morning. I was sitting in the lounge of the lodge, sipping coffee and checking Instagram. Just idly scrolling when I saw a photo Christine had posted. The whole family, my mom, my Uncle Peter, my Aunt Janine, even the twins, posing on the deck of a white yacht, wide blue ocean behind them. Christine was holding up a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Spontaneous moments are always the best. Number Bod's number. Family bonding number hit." I looked closer. Something about the picture tugged at me. Then I saw it. Near the bar in the background, half blocked by a fruit tray, was a familiar black leather travel wallet. I recognized it instantly. My monogram, HBL, was stamped in the corner in gold foil. They didn't even try to hide it. I closed Instagram and opened my banking app. Transactions were still processing. $3,200 from Solstice Spa Nassau. $1,400 from Coral Bay Marina Charter. $2,800 labeled Captain's Tip. A dozen others. High-end seafood. Designer boutiques. Private excursions. They'd taken my wallet, used my card, booked a full-blown Caribbean vacation, and left me out of it. Not by accident. Deliberately. And they thought I'd never find out. I didn't call. Didn't send a single text. I just opened my laptop, logged into my accounts, and reversed everything. Every transaction was flagged and reported. I shut the card down, froze the wallet, and requested an audit. I even called the resort and notified them of unauthorized usage. They confirmed the names of the guests. Then I waited. The next morning I started getting alerts. A failed attempt at a marina restaurant. Another at a boutique. Then a full blackout when they tried to check out of their resort suite. By noon, the resort locked their room access until payment was resolved. By 3:00 p.m., the charter captain had refused to release their luggage. The real kicker? The fraud team pinged the location. They were still docked at Bimini Bay. Stuck. At 9:46 p.m., Christine texted me in all caps. "Did you really just do that?" I stared at it for a long second, then typed back, with interest. They were used to treating me like an ATM, but this time the ATM shut down permanently. The next morning, I woke up to a strange kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind you feel when you know a storm's coming and everyone's holding their breath. 5 missed calls. No texts. All voicemails. I stared at the screen for a while, not in a hurry to hear whatever performance they had lined up. My coffee was still brewing, the sun was barely up, and I wasn't going to let them set the tone for my day. I started with the first one. My mom. No hello, no greeting, just her voice snapping through the speaker like I was already in trouble. She said they were experiencing a really unfortunate financial situation and asked if I could just fix the card thing so we can get back on track. That was her wording. Fix the card thing. Like the charges hadn't been reversed because they were stolen. Like I'd somehow tripped a wire in a system we both knew they weren't supposed to be touching in the first place. No mention of the fact they'd taken my travel wallet. No explanation about how it got there. No apology. She actually tried to sound like I had overreacted. The second voicemail was Christine. She was pretending to laugh it off. Said something about, we hit a little snag and would really appreciate a quick transfer to clear things up. She made it sound like a friend borrowing cab fare after a concert. Again, no mention of the theft, no hint that she even considered it a problem. Just assumed I'd be a good sport and bail them out again. Third message, my Uncle Peter. He sounded annoyed. Not frantic, not regretful, just irritated that their yacht fantasy was interrupted. He went on for 2 minutes about how families go through things and how punishment isn't the way we solve internal issues. Internal issues. That was his spin on identity theft. Bold, even for him. The last 2 voicemails were basically variations on the same theme. Half guilt, half manipulation. My aunt saying she'd gotten dragged into this and needed help getting back to Florida. One of the twins asking why their card stopped working when they tried to book a ferry off the island. They weren't even pretending to be confused. They just didn't want to deal with the consequences. I didn't respond. Not to any of them. Instead, I opened our family group chat. It had been around for years, mostly used for organizing birthdays and pretending we were closer than we actually were. I scrolled through it one last time. Pictures of cakes, holiday plans, arguments about who forgot to bring napkins to the last barbecue. Then I left the group quietly. No message, no scene, just gone. About an hour later, the emails started coming in. Subject line from my mom. We need to talk. Another one. Please just call me. Then the one that sealed it. You've made your point. She wrote this long email about how hurt she was, that I'd humiliated the family and acted like a stranger. She said it wasn't how she raised me, that in this family we solved things privately. That part made me laugh. As if privately stealing from your son and using his money to party on a yacht was some kind of noble tradition. I didn't write back. I just forwarded it to my lawyer. Yeah, I'd gotten one involved. Not new. I'd been preparing for this quietly over the past year. Drafted a full separation agreement after the last stunt they pulled in Vegas when they swore they'd pay me back and ghosted me the second we landed. The agreement spelled out everything. No financial obligations, no shared access, no assumed permission for use of my cards, accounts, or identity. I'd even included a clause outlining what to do in the event of theft or fraud. It had just been sitting there until now. My lawyer reviewed it, said it was strong, asked if I wanted to serve them. I said no, not yet. Instead, I replied to my mom's email with a single message. Subject: closure. Body: you're no longer authorized to use my accounts, cards, or financial information. Everything is closed. You're on your own now. Good luck getting home. I didn't block anyone. That would have made it too easy. I wanted them to see what it felt like when their golden goose walked out. I wanted them to stew in it. To sit on that dock with no plan, and no credit line, and no backup. I spent the rest of the day walking around Telluride, breathing mountain air, letting the quiet settle in a little deeper. By nightfall, no more voicemails, no more texts, nothing. But I knew they weren't done. Not yet. It started with a Facebook post. Christine again. Public this time. She posted a blurry photo of palm trees and ocean with a caption that said, Some people will always put money over family. Sad how fast people turn when you need them. No names, of course, just bait. But I didn't bite. I just screenshotted it and saved it to the folder I was building in case this ever turned into a legal mess. Petty, maybe, but I wasn't playing nice anymore. The next day, I got a text from my uncle. This one was longer. He claimed they were stuck and had no way to get off the island. He said the hotel had locked them out of the room, that they were sleeping in the lobby, that the charter company had kept their luggage as collateral. I guess they hadn't expected I'd cut them off so cleanly. I guess they thought I'd panic and undo everything just to keep up appearances. He ended the message with, "You don't want this to get ugly, Hubert." That was the moment I knew they were scared. A few hours later, my mom called again. I let it ring out. Then she texted. She finally acknowledged the wallet. Said she found it in a drawer and figured it was one you didn't use anymore. No mention of how it magically ended up across the Caribbean with my credit cards fully loaded. Said they didn't intend to deceive me. They just thought I wouldn't mind since I wasn't using the trip myself. That was her defense. I wasn't using the money, so they figured they could. Like my bank account was a community pantry. What came next was the real giveaway. She offered me shares in her new family LLC, said they had ideas for a travel venture, and if I could just invest to get them back on track, they'd make sure I saw a return. I read that message 3 times. They were stranded, desperate, burned all the goodwill I'd ever had for them, and still trying to sell me a fantasy. They were trapped in Bimini with no cash, no room, no backup, and they were pitching me a startup. That night, I got a message from Christine's friend, Maya. We hadn't spoken in years. She said Christine had told her I was punishing the family for no reason and that they were genuinely in danger. She asked if I'd at least help them get back to the States. 1 flight, 1 transfer. Just enough, she said, to make sure they're safe. I didn't respond. Not to her. Not to any of them. Instead, I called the resort myself, asked if the guests under my name were still there. The woman on the phone confirmed they'd been locked out due to fraud claims and had not resolved their bill. She said they tried to bluff their way into a second room by offering a watch as payment. Security had been called. That was the moment it really hit me. They were broke. Not just stuck. Not just caught. Broke and spiraling. The safety net was gone. And for once, they were going to have to feel it. So I made one final move. I posted a message to my own account. Nothing too obvious, but enough. A photo of me sitting in front of a fire in the lodge. A drink in hand. A peaceful view of the mountains. Caption: sometimes peace begins when the noise stops. Number: reclaiming. Quiet. No hashtags about family. No names. No drama. They saw it. I know because Christine liked it by accident, then unliked it 30 seconds later. It was 3 days later when the first one made it back. Christine, I found out the same way most people find out anything these days, through a Venmo request. She sent me a $4,000 request, titled Back Pay. You know why? I stared at it for a full minute, not even angry, just impressed at the audacity. She'd somehow convinced herself that I owed her money now, that leaving her stranded after she stole my wallet was something she had to be compensated for. I declined the request without comment. An hour later, I got a message from my ex. We hadn't spoken in over a year. The breakup was messy, mostly because my family kept pulling us into their drama. They leaned on her too, manipulated guilt, borrowed money without telling me. It was part of why we split. But now, suddenly, she was reaching out. She said Christine had contacted her, told her I'd had a breakdown, cut off the family out of nowhere, and might need help. She was worried. She asked if I was okay. I sent her a screenshot of my credit card's fraud report. She didn't reply after that. Then came the article. My cousin had apparently sent a tip to a local blog. Some clickbait nonsense about entitled tech bro strands struggling family while they're trapped abroad. It was all anonymous, but it wasn't hard to read between the lines. The comments were split, half calling the guy a monster, half asking why the family was using his money in the first place. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. I had something better. You see, back when I shut down the card, I also requested a full itemized fraud report. The bank had tracked every purchase, every swipe, every location, time-stamped. Some of the receipts included signatures. Christine had signed one with a little heart next to her name. It wasn't just fraud. It was sloppy. And I had screenshots of it all. I printed them, put them in a binder. Not for court, though I was ready for that too. But because I knew this wasn't over. I knew they'd come for me again. I wanted to be ready with facts. The real surprise came that weekend. He got a letter, not an email, not a text. A physical letter mailed to my place. The return address was from a shelter in Miami. Inside was a handwritten note from my Aunt Janine. It was short, apologetic, but not in the way I expected. She didn't defend what they did. She said it had all gone too far. That after I cut them off, Christine tried pawning her jewelry to pay for a flight. And when that didn't work, she tried to guilt-trip a tourist couple into covering it. They didn't. Janine wrote that she hadn't known the wallet was stolen, that my mom and uncle had planned the trip behind my back, using me as their fallback. She said the only reason she went was because she was promised it was already taken care of. And when things went south, Christine panicked and turned on everyone. My aunt said she was done with all of them. She'd taken the first flight out alone. She was living in a shared room now, trying to get her life back. She ended the letter with, "I hope cutting us off gave you peace. I hope it gave you power because they'll try to twist this any way they can. You were right to stop them." I stared at the letter for a long time. That was the last thing I'd expected. An honest confession. A clean break from inside their own ranks. I didn't reply, but I didn't throw it away either. It started with my uncle. I was at a cafe working through some logistics for a new consulting project when an email came in. Subject line, "Let's be civil." Inside was a 2-paragraph plea disguised as a peace offering. He wrote that things had gotten out of hand and that the family was suffering in ways I couldn't understand. He said they were willing to reset expectations and rebuild the relationship if I was ready to stop being so emotional. Then came the ask. He said Peter Jr., his youngest, was at risk of being kicked out of his school because they hadn't been able to cover the remaining tuition. He asked if I could step in just this once and show the kind of leadership the family needs right now. That's the word he used. Leadership. Like I was a CEO managing a team, not a son they'd conned out of thousands of dollars. I didn't reply. Instead, I looked up the school's public scholarship donors list. My name used to be on it. I'd paid the last 2 years of tuition for Peter Jr. when the family claimed they'd exhausted every option. Back then, it seemed like a noble thing to do. Quiet generosity. Now, it felt more like enabling a con. The next day, I heard from the family lawyer. Not mine, theirs. He called to inform me in a carefully rehearsed voice that my mother was concerned about her financial security and had questions regarding shared financial history. When I asked what that meant, he said she believed she was entitled to some form of restitution for what she described as a sudden withdrawal of long-standing support. In other words, she was threatening legal action over me cutting her off. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. My own mother, who had treated my bank account like a community fund for the last decade, now wanted a court to order me to keep supporting her. I told her lawyer he could put her in touch with mine. That was the end of the call. But things weren't going well on their end. 2 days later, I got a LinkedIn message from an old college friend who worked in private banking. She said my uncle had tried to open a line of credit using me as a cosigner, and the bank flagged it because of the fraud alert on our names. She thought I should know. Then another message came in from someone I didn't expect. Christine's ex-boyfriend. We'd only met once years ago, but now he was messaging me saying he'd seen the mess unfold from the outside. Said Christine was living at a friend's place, hopping couches and blaming everyone but herself. Said she told people I was destroying the family out of spite and that I'd used my money to make everyone dependent just so I could control them. I didn't respond to him either. But the next day, Christine finally broke silence and called me directly. I let it ring once before answering. She didn't say hi. She went straight into it. She said they were falling apart, that no one was helping anyone, that Peter Jr. had dropped out, that Janine had stopped replying to texts, that my mom was trying to sell furniture just to stay afloat. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "You're punishing people who were always broken." She said that was her defense. Not that they were sorry. Not that they'd made mistakes. But that they were always like this, and that I was cruel for expecting better. I didn't say a word. I just let the silence stretch until she hung up. That was the moment I realized something. They weren't just desperate. They were unraveling. They weren't a family anymore. They were loose ends clinging to a structure that I had unknowingly held together for years. And now that it was gone, all that was left was the collapse. 3 weeks passed, long enough for the noise to fade, but not long enough for them to stop trying. I didn't hear from Christine again. Not directly, but I saw her on a GoFundMe page. The campaign was titled, "Help Us Rebuild, Family in Crisis." There was a photo of my mom in a hospital waiting room, one of those vague, sympathetic images meant to tug at strangers. The description was a masterclass in omission. It mentioned financial abuse, abandonment, and mental health breakdowns. No names, no facts, no mention of the yacht. But it was clear who they were talking about, and they were raking in donations. I could have reported it, could have sent a cease and desist, but I didn't. Instead, I sent the link to Janine. A week later, she replied with one line, "I'm not part of that anymore." Then came the final move. I scheduled a meeting with my estate planner. I revised everything. Will, trusts, power of attorney. I removed every single family member from the documents. No inheritances. No fallback rights. I added clauses that barred them from contesting any decision or receiving anything if they ever challenged the arrangement legally. Then I created a new beneficiary. A scholarship fund in my name for first-generation college students who had no support system. Students like me, back when I thought family was supposed to mean something. The final touch? I wrote a letter, one they'll never read unless something happens to me. It explained everything. Not for guilt, not for revenge, just for clarity. A written account of exactly why I chose to leave them behind. Then I took a trip back to Nassau. Same island they burned me on. I stayed at a quiet villa on the opposite end of the coast. I went to the same marina, even stood outside the same cafe where their card first got declined. I didn't feel anger anymore, just distance, like I was watching someone else's life from a few feet away. I ordered a drink, tipped well, and watched the boats drift by. That was it. No final confrontation. No dramatic phone call. No apologies that came too late. Just me and the sun. Free. They thought they could take what they wanted from me, and still have me waiting when they came back. But I didn't wait. I never will again. I didn't get revenge through rage or lawsuits or public shaming. I got it by disappearing and taking everything they leaned on with me. It's been 9 months. Long enough for the noise to die down. Long enough for the silence to settle in and feel like home. I don't know what they're up to anymore. I don't check. I stopped looking a while back. Not out of anger. Just disinterest. That part of my life is closed cleanly. No loose ends. No secret file tucked away in case someone comes around. They won't. And I wouldn't care if they did. The GoFundMe disappeared after a few weeks. Someone flagged it. Probably Janine. She's the only one who ever showed a trace of self-awareness. We keep in touch. Not often. Just short emails. Updates about her new job in Oregon. A book she's reading. How it rained for 3 days straight and made the air smell like pine. She never brings up the family. And I don't ask. I think she needed out long before I slammed the door. She just didn't know how to leave until someone else drew the map. Christine tried rebranding. She launched a podcast. Something about resilience and personal growth. I listened to an episode out of curiosity. She cried on cue, blamed toxic dynamics, and hinted that someone close to her had weaponized wealth to cause pain. Then she asked listeners to support her healing journey via PayPal. It was theater. Nothing new. Peter Jr. joined the Navy. That one caught me off guard. He was the quiet one, always half watching, half absorbing. I guess when the money dried up and the lies stopped working, he realized nobody was coming to save him. He chose a path that made sense to him. I respect it. He's probably the only one of them I don't carry resentment for. My mom vanished in the quietest way. After the lawyer gave up trying to reach me, she faded into whatever version of reality she needed to tell herself. Maybe she still thinks I'll come around eventually. Maybe she believes she was justified. Maybe she's still telling people that I lost my mind and threw the family away over a misunderstanding. I don't care. I deleted the family group chat. Deleted every shared album, every saved contact, every thread. Not in anger, just to make space. I don't miss birthdays, holidays, or their drama. I thought I might, but I don't. It's peaceful now, uncomplicated. My life's smaller on purpose, tighter, calmer. I don't finance anyone else's dreams. I don't answer to guilt. My time is mine. My money is mine. My choices are mine. I travel more. Quiet places. Villas with no neighbors. Remote towns with good coffee and bad cell reception. Ego alone. Always alone. And I like it that way. Sometimes people ask if I regret cutting them off. I don't. What I regret is not doing it sooner. Family isn't a debt. It's not an obligation. It's a choice. And once I saw who they really were, once I saw how easily they could betray trust for comfort, for vanity, for one more round of drinks on a stolen card, I made mine. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped funding the illusion. And when the illusion collapsed, all that was left was the truth. They were never going to stop taking. So I did the only thing they never expected. I walked away, and I didn't leave a trail.